Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph will begin Daf Mem Dalet Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom with the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, B'chol Yom Hazav Yorek. Every day, when they use the shovel to scoop up the coals, the shovel was made out of yellow gold. Amar Rav Chisda Shiva Zahav Mender, 7 grades of gold. Zahav, ordinary gold. Zahav Toiv, and Zahav that is considered better quality, good. Zahav Oifer, and the gold of Oifer. Zahav Mupas, and Zahav Mupas means that it's Mupas, it's shiny. Zahav Shachot. Shachot, we'll see in the Gemara why it's called Shachot. Zahav Sogar, and closed gold. Zahav Parvim, and the Zahav of Parvim. So now the Rav Chisda explains. Zahav is Zahav Toiv Dirshu. How do we know that these 2 types of grades of gold? Because it says V'haaretz v'Zahav haaretz hahi Toiv. It says that the gold of that land was good. So that means that there's ordinary gold and there's a higher quality. There's Zahav which is Toiv, which is good. Zahav Oisir the Osmi Oifer. It comes from the land of Oifer. Zahav Mupas. Why is it called Mupas? Shadem Lapaz. Because it looks like pearls. It has shiny luster. So therefore it's called paz. Zahav Shachut. Why is it called Zahav Shachut? Shenitva Kechut. So Shachut is Shenitva Kechut. It can be spun like a thread. Rashi explains that it's soft. The gold of it is soft, and therefore it can be made into threads, spun like a thread. Zahav Sagor, closed gold. Why is it called that? Because it's such good quality. B'shosh and Niftach. At the time that the store that sells this type of gold, all the other shops are closed. This is in such high demand because of the good quality. Zahav Parvim is Parvim gold. Why is it called Parvim? Shadem Ledam HaParim. It has the appearance of the blood of the Parim. So that's why it's called Parvim. So it's called Parvim, and it has the appearance of the blood of the Parim. Rabbeinu Hainosan says that therefore it has a very high quality. We're going up in ascending order, and this is a high quality, and therefore it's used for the shovel for Yom Kippur. Tosfos Yom explains that it has Parvim, it has this color of the color of the blood of the power of the Kohen Gadol is brought into Lifnai Lifnim. So therefore, it has that color. It has diamond. That's why it's used for the shovel of Yom Kippur. Ravashi says Chamishain. He says there are only 5 types of gold. He said the Zahav Toiv is not considered to be a separate category. So he argues. He says there's only Chamishain v'chol chad v'chad isbei Zahav v'Zahav Toiv. There's Zahav and Zahav Toiv, but it's not a separate category. It's a different grade within each of the categories. So you have each category. It has the ordinary category of the the ordinary grade of that category, and the higher quality, the higher grade of that category. Tanya we bring another riot from the Bryce that the name Parvim comes because it resembles the blood of the bulls. Every day the shovel is made out of yellow gold. Today it was red. Zahav Parvim. And that Zahav Parvim Shadaim Ledam HaParim. Parvim Shadaim Ledam HaParim. So it's a riot to that pshat. The Mishnah continues, says, B'chol yom makri pras shachris, b'chol yom haisa daka, v'yom daka men daka. Every day the ketairis was finely ground. It was very fine. But today it was even daka. On Yom Kippur it was even daka men daka. Tan Rabbanon, daka matamad laima. Why does the Torah have to say that on Yom Kippur the ketairis was daka? The Torah says, V'lokach maloi hamach tagach le'esh mal mizbech l'fnei Hashem, umloi chafnav ketairis samim daka. So it makes an emphasis to say that the Ketairis has to be fine. So why does the Torah have to tell it? It says already by the Ketairis, it says it says that you should grind it and finally grind it into very fine particles. So we know that the keteris has to be daka. Ella, so why does it emphasize this on Yom Kippur? Daka mina daka. That on Yom Kippur it should be extra fine. That the same keteris that was ground up into fine particles has to be brought back into the machtesh, has to be ground up again to make it daka mina daka. The Mishnah said, every day the Kohanim go on the eastern side of the ramp. They come up the ramp to the Mizbeach. They go on the eastern side. If we say that this is east and this is west, they go on the east side and they go up to the Mizbeach and they circle the Mizbeach. So they go Mizrach Shel Kevesh, the Omar Mar, Kol Pina Shata, Pina Lo Yel Derech Yemin La Mizrach. The reason they go on the easterly side is because all the turns, when they make a turn, you turn to your right. So therefore, if they turn to the right, they go up to the easterly side, so that they turn to the right. They don't have to now cross the kevesh unnecessarily. They don't do a halicha that's not necessary. If they went up the ramp and they went up on the western side or any other side other than the east, they would be crossing this whole area for no reason. They go to the easterly side, which is where they have to turn anyway towards the east. So they go to this edge and they turn east and they come around the Mizbeach. But on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol comes up the middle of the ramp. So why does he do this? He's apparently walking a halicha shalei letzarach, my taima, mishum kveida the Kohen Gadol. It shows the covet of the Kohen Gadol like he's a ben bias, and therefore he can walk even though it's halicha shalei letzarach, even though it's not necessary. But he is like someone who lives there. He's a ben bias. It shows his chashivas in the eyes of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Every day the Kohen Gadol, he washes his hands and feet from the kir. My time, so my time is that on today, on Yom Kippur, it's not done from the kir, it's done from the golden flask. My time, what's the reason? Mishum k'vodesh Kohen Gadol. It shows the cover, the honor of the Kohen Gadol, that he's like a ben bias, that he can walk a halicha shalei l'tzarach. B'chol yom mekadosh raglo min kir. Every day the Kohen Gadol would wash his hands and feet from the kir. But today on Yom Kippur, it was from the keli of the golden vessel. It was from the golden flask. My time, what's the reason for this change? To show the special covenant of Kohen Gadol that there's a special kli made out of gold that is used. Again, as we mentioned before, there's a machlekes rishonim if that includes the first washing or only the subsequent washings. On every day there were 4 pyres on the Mizbeach. They had 4 areas where the fire was burning. On Yom Kippur there was an extra one, there was a 5th one. That is Divrei Rabbi Meir. But in the we have a machlekes between that, and Rabbi Meir says that was the case, but Rabbi Yossi says that there was 3 regularly, and there was a 4th on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yehuda says that no, there was only 2 regularly, and there was a 3rd one on Yom Kippur. Every day that there was 2, and Yom Kippur there was an extra one, a 3rd one. So this is the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. So regularly there's 2, on Yom Kippur there's a 3rd one. Achas maracha gedola, one is the main one where the Evarim Pedarim of the carbonates were burned. Va'achas maracha shniya shel keteris, and a second one was they had the coals, where they took the coals to burn the keteris that they burned daily, part in the morning and part in the evening. Then on Yom Kippur they added another one, va'achas shmeisifim boy bayim, and one which was added for Yom Kippur, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. And the 3rd one was that for Yom Kippur they had a 3rd one, which they took the coals to burn the keteris, special keteris of Yom Kippur, lifnai lifnei. Rashi explains the regular keteris, the daily keteris, even on Yom Kippur, was taken from the 2nd marach. The 3rd marach was specifically for the coals that were burned, the keteris which was burned in the Kodesh Kodashim. That's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says no. B'chol yom shalosh. Every day there was 3, v'hayom arba. And today there was 4. Achas shel maracha gedola, one the main maracha. V'achas maracha shniya shel keteris. And the second one was for the keteris. Va'achas shel kimo eish, and he says there's another one which they had a fire for kimo eish. That if they saw that the main marocha was not burning properly, they would replenish it with the burning coals that were on this marocha. This marocha was used to replenish the main marocha if the fire was weak or was going out. And the fourth one was for the special ketairas, burning of the ketairas on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Meir, he says, no, b'chol yom arba. Daily there was 4, b'chol yom chomesh, and on Yom Kippur there was 5. Achas shel maracha gedola, one the main maracha, v'achas maracha shniya shel ketairas, v'achas shel kimo eish. V'achas, now this is the one he adds, the daily one that he adds, v'achas le'vorim pedorim shel yisachlo mi'ba'erev. And one was for Evarim Pedorim that were not consumed during the night. If they were not consumed during the night, either that they weren't burnt or they were not, because of the volume, were not even be able to put on the maracha. So they had a special maracha over here that they burned these Evarim Pedorim. So that was the fourth. And the fifth one was for the special ketairas of Yom Kippur. But everyone holds that regularly there's at least 2. Everyone holds that was at least 2. And how do we know this? On the pasuk says, Hi ha'oila al moikta al mizbeach kol alayat. This is the oila on the flame of the mizbeach the whole night. So Zu Marach Gedola, that's a reference when it says that it's Oila al Moikta, that it's on the flame on the Mizbeach. That's the Marach Gedola, that's the main one. Then the pasuk continues and says Ve'esh HaMizbeach Tukad Boy. It continues and says that Ve'esh HaMizbeach Tukad Boy. So this is another fire. Zu Marach Shniya Shel Ketairos. That's a reference to the Marach Shniya Shel Ketairos. Rabbi Yosi, who says there was another one for Kima Eish, Rabbi Yosi, Kima Eish Menole. Where does he learn out that there was a Maroch for Kiyum Ha'esh to keep the fire going? Nafkale Mevoha Eish Al Mizbeach Tukad Bay. He learns it out from the pasuk which says Me Eish Al Mizbeach Tukad Bay. So the pasuk we previously quoted was pasuk base. It was in Vayikra Perek Vav pasuk base. This over here, this is a separate pasuk that's in pasuk Hey. It says Va'esh al mizbeach tukad boy lo yisichbe u'bi'er le'akayin eisim v'bayker v'bayker v'archal victor le'chalei shlomim. So it says again Va'esh al mizbeach tukad boy. So what is this referring to? So he learns, or Yesi learns, it's a separate marocha for Kima Eish. Rabbi Yehuda, he says, no, there was no marach for Kiyum Eish. What does he do with this pasuk? Rabbi Yehuda, he learns that this is what's referring to, that the splinters of wood, and when you make the fire, you have the big logs, but you have to start the fire first with splinters. That's how it starts a fire. That's easier to start and quicker to start. You start that, and then with that you ignite the logs. So that's for the Atzasa Lisa. This time we learned it in Brisa, it was taught in the Brisa, that how do we know that the lighting of these splinters, that you use that to start the fire on the Marocha? How do you know that this has to be done on the top of the Mizbeach? You have to know that. How do you know it's done on the Mizbeach? Talmud Loimer Va'esh al Mizbeach Tukad Boy. It says Va'esh al Mizbeach. It has to be done on the Mizbeach. So that's what he says. Not that there's a separate marocha, but you light the splinters on the top of the Mizbeach. Amar Rabbi Yosi says Minayin she'osim marocha l'kiyum ha'esh Talmud Loimer Va'esh al Mizbeach Tukad Boy. He says that you have a marocha for kiyum ha'esh. So then we have the machlokes on how to interpret this pasuk. So Rabbi Yehuda says that he uses the pasuk for Atzosas Alisa. Now the question is, Rabbi Yosi Atzosas Alisa Menale. How does he know? Where does he learn out Atzosas Alisa that it has to be at the top of the Mizbeach? The more answers Nafkale Mehech Nafkale L'Rav Shimon. He learns it from the same source, the Rosh Hashanah. It says the Bnei Aaron will put the fire on the Mizbeach. Limed al Atzosas Alisa. It teaches you that Atzosas Alisa, the lighting of the splinters, Shaloi Tela B'Kayin Kasha or B'Kli Shoris. It has to be, it says Bnei Aaron a Kayin, to teach you that this lighting of the splinters has to be with a kain kosher, and with big day kahuna. Div Rabbi Yehuda. Amr Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says, it's not needed to teach me this. Can Azar come close to the Mizbeach? It's also for him to come close to the Mizbeach. So it's obvious that it has to be with a kain kosher and a klishoras. Ella, it's coming to teach you a different day. The limar al atzosas alisa, the lighting of the splinters, that it has to be at the top of the mizbeach. So this is where we learn it out from. From this pasuk, we learn that it's inspirational mizbeach, and it has to be on the top of the mizbeach. And therefore, we have the pasuk that was mentioned before, va'esh al mizbeach tukad, is the extra to teach me that there's a marach for kiyum ha'esh. Rashi points out that, but according to this, why does it mention specifically Aaron? It tells me, it teaches the Etzem Din that even though the Eish are the mitzvah Shemaim, there's a mitzvah to light it by humans, to light the fire by humans. I don't think that you can take it from the bottom and from the floor and throw it up to the mizbeach. No, it has to be done. It has to be done lit at the top of the mizbeach. And Mamela, it has a din, therefore, of din of a kayin. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you can't learn out that it's a kayin simply by the fact that only a kayin can come to the mizbeach, because if not for that, if we don't have a specific pasuk, I would have thought, I would have thought that a zar could stand away from the mizbeach, use bellows to fan the flame, and he's not coming close to the mizbeach, and I would have thought therefore would be kosher. Kamash Malan, that's why it teaches me that even if he's far away from the mizbeach, it has to be done with a kayin and cannot be done with a zar. Taisus explains that no, you would not need the pasuk for this, because it's not derech avoda to do it in that way, and therefore that would not be acceptable. Therefore, the person that lights it, has to be close to the mizbeach. He has to come to the mizbeach, and therefore, mamela, it has to be a kayin. Now, according to Reb Meir, how does he know that the evarim upedorim that were not burnt from the maracha? How does he know that? Where does he know that we have to set up a maracha to burn them? Where do we know that there's an extra maracha for the evarim upedorim shalom yisachlo that weren't burned during the night? Nafkale ve'esh. He learns it out from the vav, the extra vav of ve'esh, that ve'esh amizbeach, that you learn it out that it teaches that there's an extra maracha. Rabbanan vav loy darshan, but the Rabbanan say there was no such maracha. They do not darshan this extra vav. According to the Rabbanan, they did not have this extra maracha. What did they do with the evarim p'darim, which were not consumed during the night? What was done with them? The Gemara answers, it's put back onto the main maracha and it's burnt there. How do we know that these evarim p'darim that were not consumed during the night, that you arrange them on top of the mizbeach? And if it can't hold them, there's not enough room for them, then if not, then you arrange it on the ramp on the kevish, or on the ledge that surrounds the mizbeach, until the maracha is made, and then you put it on the maracha and you arrange it on the maracha gedolah, so you see that it's on the maracha gedolah. How do we know that? Talmud loimer asher toichel ha'esh es ha'olam mizbeach. It says asher toichel ha'esh al oil mizbeach. Now we don't need this pasuk to tell me that you put it on the mizbeach, that it's burnt on the mizbeach, because we know that already. So it must be telling us that even the evarim p'darim shaloi nisachlu from the previous evening, they are burned on the mizbeach, on the main ma'aroch. Taisus explains that we put them on the kevish or on the soive We do that because two pshat and one pshat is because otherwise, if we remove them completely, then there will be possible lina, as long as it's on the mizbeach, and according to some portion on the upper part of the mizbeach, specifically on the upper part of the mizbeach, then it won't be possible lina. The second pshat is that perhaps it's even also to remove it from the mizbeach. So therefore, we arrange it over there. Then it's we arrange it in that on the upper part of the mizbeach, the upper part of on the kevesh or the soiviv, so it's not possible. And then the next day we burn it on the marocha, the main marocha. We burn it that day on the main marocha. The Gemara will continue to discuss and analyze these shitas.